Hello, and welcome to another episode of Riot MMO Tweets. In this episode, we're going to go over some of the new hires and veterans, as well as take a look at some of the developers' recent tweets regarding the League of Legends MMO, set in the massive world of Runeterra. The last few months, the devs have talked about everything from multiplayer storytelling, pay to win, and even fishing in the Riot MMO. So without further ado, let's jump right into the tweets. So first off, I wanted to go over a couple of the new hires that we've had and their interactions on Twitter. First off, we have Riot Tom, UK to US. I don't know if he wants it to be pronounced Tom Mucus or Tom UK US. On his Twitter, he does say UK to US, so I'm guessing he's British. He is the principal visual designer on the Riot Games MMO. He's also got a great website that's just chock full of user experience, user interface that he has worked on. He's coming from the Legends of Runeterra team, which in my opinion has always just had this really great, clear, and concise user interface and user experience. So I think what he'll be bringing to the MMO team will be just fantastic, and I look forward to seeing his work on the MMO. Next up, we have Katya, who was a lead 3D character artist, formerly working on the skins team over at League of Legends. She's now come over to the Riot MMO as the 3D character artist. I'm not sure, I am sure that their team is going to be massive, so it's going to take a lot of work. But as a lead 3D character artist, she will be working on a lot of the player characters, NPCs, and just character design in general within the game in the 3D environment. She also has a great online resume. I'll throw up some of it here. As well as with Tom, I'll have links to both of their websites down below in the comments if you want to check them out. Really great stuff from both of them, and I'm just super happy to see both of them coming over to the Riot MMO. All right, the first actual tweet that we do have, though, is just kind of a fun little interaction we had here with Xenogenic and Sap Magic. Just kind of joking about their conversations on Slack. I responded them saying, Riot MMO canceled? They responded saying, irreconcilable differences. MMO dev drama spills out onto Twitter. Signs of the beginning of the end for the Riot's MMO. Just fun. Nice to see the guys able to just kind of have some fun with me, and great interactions. Next up, we had an interaction with Mateus, the principal narrative designer for the Riot Games MMO. Coming from The Witcher and Cyberpunk, of course, he's going to be asked about storylines. This person had a question. Do you think that multiplayer storytelling can rival and perhaps exceed single-player storytelling one day? To which he responded, interesting question. I definitely believe that you can have great storytelling in both, but each provides a different experience and comes with its own set of advantages and disadvantages. More in the thread. Single-player games allow you to control the pace at which you go through the story as a player. You can go in depth as much as you want. There's no one else in the game rushing you or interrupting your immersion. It's just you and the game. Multiplayer games, which is what he'll be working on with the MMO, have to take other players in the world into account when building the narrative, but they have an immense potential for generating exciting user stories by allowing interactions with other players, in-game economies, social systems, etc. There were some very interesting games that experimented with multiplayer storytelling in recent years. It Takes Two and Divinity 2 come to mind. He didn't play Baldur's Gate 3 yet, but looks forward to it. And I think most people would agree that they did an excellent job. Ultimately, though, I don't see a risk for single-player storytelling to retire or be overtaken by multiplayer storytelling. These are very different experiences, and I think there will always be plenty of players who will enjoy them, myself included. In that sense, I don't believe one can exceed the other, no more than apples can exceed oranges. I do believe, though, that multiplayer games can deliver an excellent level of storytelling and certain experience that single-player games simply cannot, and vice versa. I think this is super interesting. It goes into just kind of his theory around multiplayer experiences and some of the other games he has played with that. I think It Takes Two is really great because it shows that you can progress a storyline in a way that directly connects with the gameplay itself. And when he's writing and creating these storylines, he's thinking about the gameplay as well and how it all interacts. So really great stuff. And let's go on to the next one. Next up, we have Riot Junasar, the senior game producer at Riot Games R&D, and a very, very interesting thread kind of about Riot in general's take on pay to win. Now, with the recent success or lack thereof from Diablo Immortal recently, pay to win's a hot topic, and it's interesting to see what kind of their take is on it. Here are some spicy thoughts on the alarming recent trends I'm seeing regarding mobile game monetization. The boundaries of pay to win are being pushed into new and worrying territory. Games are obscuring predatory pay-to-win mechanics to much later in the game experience and are being masked by a gameplay layer over the top that makes it even harder for players to understand what they're engaging with and how much it actually costs. When people are rolling dices, they know it's gambling, but when they're paying for a better chance at loot within a gameplay moment, it's so much harder to conceptualize the pay-to-win mechanics. Revenue KPIs, key performance indicators, often speak the loudest to game developers and investors, and so some of the exploitative and predatory tactics seem to be becoming standard practice. To be clear, games need to make money in order to survive, but I'm worried that the industry is looking at revenue reports as the single point of data to determine the success of a game. There are not really industry-wide incentives to make more ethical choices to protect players, especially in the mobile space, and I see very few studios doing so. When the more renowned developers are setting this worrisome standard for the rest of the industry, I fear for the industry as a whole, both as a developer and as a gamer. And I think Mark Yetter's response to this is really great, as him being one of the people working on the Riot MMO specifically. He says, "This whole thread is insightful and I very much agree. There are ways to squeeze out more profit today, but ultimately, they hurt the players and the game in the long term. Ideally, for a free-to-play game, you want purchases to be win-win, where devs make money and the players feel good about it." I think this is also just super important that he's even saying this. I've had tons of tweets, and anytime I look up the Riot MMO on Twitter, I just see players saying how, oh, the Riot MMO, it's gonna be pay to win. And there's a definite confusion and honestly, it's a fear from players about what even pay to win is. Cosmetics oftentimes aren't pay to win directly, but if they affect the gameplay in a negative manner, then it has a bad effect on the game. And I think monetization is something that the game developers need to look at early and find a healthy balance for the gamers as well as the shareholders. All right, now to everyone's favorite part, the very vocal Ghostcrawler, aka Greg Street. He's got a ton of tweets, so I wanted to get into him as soon as possible. So let's get into it. First off, he was asked, will the new MMO make your character a chosen one or just a regular adventure? Greg responds saying, "It's giving away too much to share that yet, but we really want this to be a multiplayer game, so you can't be that special." It's always jarred me a little bit and made me feel a little weird when I'm running around in an MMO environment and I'm the chosen one, I am the most powerful, but I go to the auction house and there's just a lineup of chosen people. So kind of good to see that there's going to be a little bit of a balance there, and we're going to be working as a group and we are the chosen people, not just the singular one champion. Next, he's asked, when will we get the first concept arts for the MMO? He responds saying, we have a ton of concept art, but we want to make sure we can deliver on the art style in the engine. It is quite technical. You can read into that and interpret it as you will. Otherwise, it feels a little bait and switchy. Really great information. They've of course got a ton of concept art right now, and they're making it work in the engine in a way that it visualizes properly. To me, I read a little bit into that, and like he said, you can interpret that as you will. The other time I've heard Riot speak this way was when they were talking about the Arcane series and its art style specifically. I think they may be going for something like that, and it would be super cool to see in an MMO. Personally, love it. Great idea. Obviously, I'm reading into it though. And this is coming from one of his older posts where he ended up responding later on when talking about borrowed power. MMOs have always done this to some extent when new expansion came out and your old gear needed to be replaced. But I think it feels worse to players when it is a mechanic they enjoy. An extreme example would be you have unlocked a mechanic that gives you a fun extra ability to use in your rotation. If that ability is taken away and your rotation feels worse, that can feel lame. Even if it is given back later, perhaps especially if it is given back later. Once again, World of Warcraft, one of the most talked about, most important MMOs out that's really ever come out, has notoriously had the bait and switch borrowed power in it. And Greg Street, having been someone who worked on World of Warcraft, has a very personal connection with that. And he's looking to solve that problem. So it's good to see. So this year, 2022, we're getting an official reveal, you said, for the Riot MMO. Or at least something that was going to be revealed officially, if I'm not mistaken. Is that what you said? He responds saying, I said we would like to. We don't want to overhype until we have enough interesting things to say and show. This gets me excited because, hey, you're saying I got a chance? Next, he was asked, do you find these frequent questions about the MMO annoying? Or you see it positively that it already has interest even though nothing is known publicly about the MMO? He responds saying, no, we love that people are already invested, and the kind of questions folks ask give us a good indication of what players will be interested in. This is great news for me as a content creator. I like that he's not upset that we're really invested in this game and we look forward to seeing it. It also says, hey, go follow him on Twitter and don't forget to follow me too, and we can have these discussions with him and potentially help build and give them a good indication of what us as players are interested in seeing in the game. Keeping all classes on the same level of power is super important. I hope you guys update and keep all classes relevant for all content. Sucks having to swap main every patch. Greg agrees. The counter is someone saying that they grinded a dungeon 100 times for a trinket that then got nerfed next patch. So, as with all things MMO, there's balance, and balance needs to occur within the game mechanics, as well as how often balance patches do come out. I really don't want to see level boosts. There are more organic ways to accelerate players to level cap in later expansions / updates than instant boost and throw them in the deep end. I know it's more about money than player experience, but hopefully you can find another way. Greg responds saying, I don't think it's just about the money. When people told me to play Final Fantasy XIV, they said I need to play for about 200 hours of old content to get to the good stuff and be able to play with them. Now, I understand I got through 90% of that, and just when I was about to be ready to actually play with my friends, I was burnt out. And while maybe instant level boosts aren't the exact option as far as best case scenario, maybe speeding up the process, allowing skips, or having your friends be able to bring you through the content a little bit quicker. There's other options out there, and I think Greg's just being realistic about that. And while talking about phasing, Greg says, you can definitely split up communities. The counterpoint is you can't burn the city to the ground as part of, say, a quest chain and have it stay burnt without phasing. You just need to make sure not splitting folks up is also a goal. So maybe you need to get everyone into the burnt phase as quickly as possible. Once again, just kind of spitballing ideas here and seeing what the player base thinks. When asked about storylines and whether we'll see stories from other games coming into the MMO and vice versa, he responds saying, I think it's possible to overdo it. I like it when stuff comes from outside the game, or movie for that matter, and they let him go deeper onto the storyline. I don't like it when I feel like a company is trying to get me to consume a bunch of content I don't care about, just to give me the whole story. And I agree. I think we should be able to play just this game and not have to play every single other Runeterra-based video game out there. But it is nice to kind of have an investment in this whole world and see it everywhere else. One thing I really loved is just seeing World of Warcraft sponsors on different beverages and other things in the real world. And it gave just a sense of like community that I really appreciated, and hopefully we can see in the Runeterra MMO. I was wondering how the characters that we play in the League of Legends MMO can be controlled. Will we play in first person or third person? Or will we see them from above and control them with the mouse like in League of Legends? Unfortunately, Greg responds with, "We haven't announced that yet." This for me is super important. I'm gonna play the game probably anyways, whether it's first person, third person, or isometric, as I just love the world of Runeterra. But I think a lot of people's future in the game may potentially be dependent on that. So hopefully we get some information soon whenever they do their release of info, and I'll be the first to report it. Responding to a why old MMOs feel better and the difficulty of older MMOs, Greg responds saying, "I am sympathetic, even if I contributed to it, of MMOs becoming too easy," for want of a better term. But it's not just the games that have evolved. There were no streamers, online guides, simulations, or data mining in the older era. And these are both true, and I think even just recognizing this as a potential problem really shows that this MMO that we're all looking forward to and watching videos on before we even have a name for it is in really good hands. And once again, Greg does it, and we get phishing confirmed. He says, "I think the RPG Academy will take away your license if you try to ship an RPG without phishing." So, once again, phishing confirmed. Ghostcrawler, "May I know your opinion about housing?" Greg responds saying, "Definitely agree about having optional things to do. Housing itself has pros and cons. Has any multiplayer game done them really well in your mind?" For me personally, when I think about housing, or even economies for that matter, having the two connected is fantastic. And what MMO had done this better other than Star Wars Galaxies, in my opinion? So hopefully Greg can maybe look at that game or look at other similar games and maybe player housing in the future. Although I would say it would be a long stretch to say player house is even confirmed at this point. I think he thought about it, but that's about as far as he's gone. How's the MMO going? Stunningly well. How likely would you look at games like Legends of Runeterra for characters and them showing up in the MMO? I personally adore so many of the non-champion characters in the card game. Greg responds with, "We are big fans of LOR's take on the lore, and we have several Legends of Runeterra veterans on the team." Once again, it's great seeing some of these people on the MMO team, as well as them potentially pulling inspiration from one of the most lore-dense games that they've really ever put out at Riot. Ghostcrawler, "Thought I might as well ask this. How's the team's stamina looking? Everyone well fed? MMO coming along? Make any cool breakthroughs?" Greg responds saying, "Team is good. They know this is the iconic marathon of game development, so we emphasize taking time off. We have vowed not to crunch." Once again, it's great to see that their culture on this MMO is good. They're having fun. They're taking breaks. I know Greg just got back from Wales, so they're inspired and they're relaxed, and they're going to make a great game, hopefully. So, thumbs up. Ideally, you should rarely be told directly to kill X enemies. You just kill them because you understand they are part of the bigger objective. Well, Greg does agree with that in theory, but in practice it can lead players to avoiding fighting altogether, or even resenting the monsters, or the game for that matter, when they do get attacked, since combative NPCs are just viewed as obstacles rather than a core part of the game. I think this is kind of an interesting view as far as what quests could look like, where you don't necessarily want to have a quest that's go kill 12 NPCs. And if you have a quest that says go to the other side of the NPCs, you just try to avoid them in general. So once again, I'm going to keep saying it again, the B word, balance. There's a balance. Maybe you kill 4 and maybe the quests are just more interesting. So we'll see where that goes. What do you think about not having a dungeon/raid finder? Feeling lately like that's preventing people from making friends. A lot of social hubs don't feel like an actual spot to talk and hang out. Just view other players and feel more alone. Please encourage socialization. In WoW terms, since our game may not match exactly, if I could do it all again, I would advocate a dungeon finder for easier content. Non-heroic, non-mythic maybe, and no raid finder, but a lot more investment in a guild finder. This is Great news for a lot of people. I know some of our more old school fans really look back on the older MMOs and building communities and meeting people and playing with them and looking forward to playing in your group, your static group of players. And raid finders and dungeon finders and all this stuff oftentimes can take away from that. And I think moving forward, Greg is looking for a way to have both, the best of both worlds, really. I don't think they're mutually exclusive, and I'm pretty sure Greg agrees. I know it's hard to give an ETA, especially with a project as big as an MMO, but could you give a very, very rough worst case scenario ETA, assuming there will probably be a bunch of delays? Are we talking in the range of 2 years, 4 years, 2077? Greg responds saying, I'm not trying to be cryptic, but we really don't know. MMOs are so dependent on all of their different systems stacking up and interacting, and if you rush that, you risk collapse. It's a blessing, but can feel a bit like a curse that we can take all the time we need. Ghostcrawler, you might have answered this before, but would the MMO be solo player friendly? I might be weird, but the few MMOs I have played, I liked questing on my own, so I could go at my own pace, but still being able to interact with friends in a meaningful way. Greg responds saying, I would say that if you want a single player experience and not ever have to worry about other players, then go play Horizon Forbidden West. It's excellent. So is Elden Ring. If you want a social experience, then an MMO may be as good as a choice. However, we recognize that your friends aren't always online, or you are between friend groups, or you just want a low-stress experience. So you will be able to go out and make progress while solo, but you won't be able to experience the whole game solo, or probably even pug it all. Ghostcrawler, have you considered alternative ideas to players choosing and claiming names? Uniqueness of one name to a server is nice, but also the FCFS blitz of day one can seem unfair due to people's schedules or potential server stability issues. Greg responds saying, I feel like this is a solved problem, where a game/site can just append a number that is often invisible. This is an interesting little piece of information here, where he's kind of saying that names won't be just your name. Right? You will be able to share the same name as other people, and they will have numbers at the end of the name that are invisible. So a spun 1, 2, 3, 4, there may also be a spun 4, 3, 2, 1. I think this kind of works with like battle tags, and other games have done similar things. But it allows you to have the name you want, and I kind of like it. Hey, Ghostcrawler, out of curiosity, will there be any new info about the Riot MMO coming out anytime soon? Itching to hear/see more of it. And if not, are there any teasers you're allowed to give about the gameplay/combat? Greg responds saying, I honestly don't know. We want to make sure anything we hype is worthy of your time and not vague in any way. As to combat, all I can say is that I am a combat guy, and it's very important to me personally. Happy to see that the combat is going to be a very important part of this, coming from the lead guy at the game. So very interesting. As far as seeing future information, would love an answer personally, but I think we all got to sit here, enjoy the videos, and wait. It's a waiting game. And I think to follow up with that, it's good to look at this next tweet, and it'll be the one I'll leave you guys on. Greg says, we do want to talk about the game often and early so that we have time to make changes. That's the whole point of us talking about it already when we haven't even shared a name. Just really good to hear that they are wanting to talk about the game as much as possible, and they're being open about it. So props to the team over at Riot, and as always, make sure you hit the subscribe button. I'm going to continue talking about this game every single day for probably the rest of my life, or at least career. So thank you guys for coming by. Once again, this is a long one. The Twitter videos are oftentimes very lengthy. So we'll try to make another one a little bit sooner next time without hopefully getting COVID in between. So thank you guys for coming out. I will see you in the next video. My name is Spun. Have a great day. Peace.